do is just clarify some of the areas, and we'll need some staff input on this. Some of the areas that we're being asked to have a look at might have been stuff that we've already had some insight into in previous workshops, but they might have, from where I sit, they might have been stuff which has been mixed in with a whole bunch of other stuff. It would be really helpful just to have a bit of a recap and a bit of an introduction. Okay, this is what we looked at previously, just a reminder so that we get some context. And Aileen gave us a really good summary of the topic that we're talking about earlier on. That would have probably been more helpful at the beginning of the conversation, just to remind where we were and how we got to this point. So we're all dealing with a whole bunch of stuff and a lot of information over a long period of time. Just help us through that process would be really, really useful. Thank you. If that makes sense. Now, Aileen, you potentially had a solution. Come back to that? Okay, not a problem. Right.
I can just coming back to this particular issue, and just to start from the 36,000 that is included in the budget, right? And so that is around how we as staff can help work on preparing for things like reserve management plan agreements for co-governance, how we need to look at establishing what sort of types of committees we may need to be involved in with iwi and other agencies like regional council. It's around dealing with issues that have started to escalate already. So we can give some examples around Ngārimu Bay and Te Mata, about places that there's been accidental discovery, and about how the rules of how we engage with iwi and with the wider community on those issues. So that has been budgeted for. When we came and spoke to the council around increasing that need for a resource, that's the additional 100,000 that is now on the table for council to consider. One of the things that we are aware of is that, you know, again, against the prioritisation of this, we do have signposted, as we've reiterated, that there are some treaty bills that are signalled to be settled within the next 12 to 18 months by government. And there's also, you know, around those the treaty side of things, those things, and also what Dean has put together in terms of a list of considering all the obligations that we understand we do need to have with iwi. So that's why this is now on the table. For the councils to consider is whether they want to resource that now, or if it's something that we slowly start to resource up, understanding that also staff have prioritisation of other projects, and if this becomes a high priority, then other things will have to be moved around to resource these issues.
Thanks, Lorna, that's a big help. So can I just flag two things? First of all, and the Councillor Gottlieb raised it, the timing of the legislative process, and what we're hearing is that this new government has expressed an appetite for moving forward with treaty settlements, not have them drag on. So getting a clear signal that treaty settlements are going to happen sooner rather than later, but we're still hearing 12 to 18 months potentially down the track. So some of this could be, as you flagged, a timing thing. We're facing, you know, pretty severe rates increases over the next 12 months. So is there a timing issue where, as you mentioned, we accept the responsibility to resource this and accept the responsibility for us as a council to make sure that we're in a good place to manage our way through these, but the timing of that can be worked in a different way so that we can ease our way through and not impose additional burden on ratepayers in this first 12-month period, which is the squeeze period. Councillors, can I just get some feedback on how you feel about that? John Grant, please.
Thanks very much. Absolutely support that, and I think that's a very clear message that that we were also discussing here last Friday, that we have got to act to try and look at all areas. This is an issue I think that probably is going to be better looked at in an annual plan, where if there are legislative requirements and we need to then consider additional resource that we can't fill within our existing staff, then we could look at that as a separate issue. But just putting money aside and resources aside and further burden on the ratepayers where it's not 100% clear, I would not support.
Thank you, John. Any other commentary? Gary, please.
I've just been looking at the bits of legislation, and it is in the distance and it's a nice to have, but when we're looking at really what we have to do with our budget, you know, sure we accept that we're going to probably have to deal with it, but let's deal with it when we have to.
Thank you, Gary. Peter, please.
Yeah, Len, I totally agree with your comment about us taking on the obligation and the responsibility we have around all that, and absolutely we need to do that. I would not want to suggest or leave there that the way of addressing that is by necessarily adding to our staffing levels, but as I said before, using the opportunity to look at, say, how have we got our staff prioritised and so on, but that's a matter for the operational people.
Thank you, Peter. Can I just clarify around the table? I don't think the 36,000 is an option as a under discussion. That's just as part of the budget. Nobody's got an issue with that. It's just the timing of the proposed 100K a year over 3 years, the timing of that, and at what pace we respond to our obligations. Have I summarised that? John, thank you. All right. Robin, please.
So my question before the break was to Aileen, but there was a second component of that about how palatable it will be. And it sounds like John Grant is suggesting that we put something in the next annual plan. So if the appetite is there, but you think that it's not urgent and it doesn't require immediate attention, would we be comfortable as a governance body to put this in, but with funding starting in 25-26? So there's no burden next year, but that we've signalled that this is important. We've signalled we absolutely understand the need and the value for this, and that we're prepared to do the work, but not next year.
Thank you, Robin.
Sorry.
You go first.
That's not what I'm suggesting. What I'm suggesting is the work is important. We do have to do it.
Oh, no, Peter, I'm suggesting, well, I'm not suggesting you're suggesting that. No, I'm saying that I'm hearing that there is some reluctance from around the table. And so I'm wondering, I mean, I agree with you that this work needs to be done, but the risk, I'm willing to compromise to do it in a year that isn't next year, if it means that we're doing the right thing and that we're doing, because if it's not palatable right now, but John Grant is suggesting that we put it in the annual plan, then why not signal it now and just have it in there?
Yes, I'm of the opinion that we should just wait for it to happen. I don't like to put it in. We're back to basics. I'm going to say it's a lot of the next couple of days. We are back to essentials. We have to talk to our ratepayers about them pulling their belts tighter, and I think we have to too. And I would be keen to think if there's not 18 months before those treaty settlements settle, that when that time comes, I'm sure they'll bring it to the table. So I would like to leave it off the table at the moment.
Thank you, Terry. Aileen, please.
Just a suggestion. There is some importance in this. So I would suggest a resolution that asks staff to report back to council on the upcoming obligations with a view to deciding what needs to be included in the next annual plan.
Thanks, Aileen. We've got a note of that.
I think that's the draft, Kath, that you have. So,
okay, Rebecca, please.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, just an understanding of how we've got to the figure or the figure that's needed, because that's a big thing that's missing for me here.
Would that, when it comes back to council, that'd be supported by a report as well, wouldn't it, Aileen?
Sorry.
When it comes back to council, that'd be supported by a report, which would answer some of the questions. Yeah. Thank you. Martin, did you have something? Last one, then we'll move on.
Yeah, just to say I would like to have a vote on the 100K for the next 3 years. I don't see this as a wait for something to happen or nice to have. I think having that money will enable us to look at what our obligations are going to be, and there are going to be obligations, just like water drinking standards or anything. It's not something we can vote our way out of or say we're not interested in doing. And I would like to test the water for the 100k a year for the next 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. So we've got a proposed resolution. Have we got that in a way that we can bring it up for councillors to have a look at? What's the best timing and process?
So
for that?
through the chair, we don't have anything yet. So
Your Worship, I think Councillor Rodley had were you tabling a motion?
yeah,
Yes.
would you like to put that motion?
The problem
As a
is we
mover,
don't have a
We don't have a
resolution.
seconder.
We don't have a resolution to move on. So we've got a motion.
Through the chair,
there
we
isn't a
do,
resolution.
and I can share it up on screen to the effect of what Councillor Rodley is talking about. But I'm asking if there is a seconder. There is a seconder.
Okay. Are you able to bring that up?
I think it needs to be amended to say starting in year 1 because it's ongoing. Yeah.
I think I heard Councillor Roddy asking for that for 3 years, not just year 1.
1 to 3. We provided you figures for 3 years, but I think the understanding was it would be ongoing.
So it would be starting
Starting in year 1.
in year 1.
Okay, so that's the resolution that's in front of us. The alternative potential resolution is that we ask for a report back to council as suggested by Aileen. And I would like to consider that option as well, because I'm hearing from councillors that this might not be supported in terms of the timing, but that we get a report back to council.
Yeah,
we do.
Take them one
We
at a
need to
time.
test it and see.
Okay. All right. So we've got a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Okay. Those against? All right. So the motion is defeated. Abstain. Thank you. Abstain. Thank you. All right. Would you like those recorded? Yes. All right. Thank you.
Through the chair, because we didn't get enough, it just lapses. We don't need it to be recorded.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So if we're looking at another option about asking the chief executive to bring a report back to council, how do we resolve that? Does that need a resolution?
But we need to see what's happening in the future because there's all this talk. It's 12 months, 18 months, whatever. I think we need to just tie-ho a bit. They're busy enough.
Through the chair, could I suggest that that resolution be amended to say that we report back? I think that was the gist of what Eileen had discussed.
I think maybe the chief executive report
So-
back when required.
So guys, if I promise to make sure that you go on a list, can we promise to stick to the process, please? We've got a lot to get through. We just need to make sure that we are fair to everybody.
Just as a suggestion, I don't think this resolution needs to deal with that because it just is automatic that you would come back if there was a need for that, and that would then be considered by council separately when it was needed. It would not be part of the LTP.
Aileen, you got some
I agree. In the normal course of business, that's exactly what we do. I think the point here, though, is that we've had requests from some of our submitters. This indicates an intention from the elected membership that it's important, rather than just leaving it to the normal run of business. But yeah.
Does this give us the flexibility to ask you to report back and give us some options at a later stage and for the annual plan? Yeah, comfortable with that? Okay. All right. So that's what's in front of us. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please?
I'll move it.
Okay. So Martin had his hand up. You happy to second that, Councillor Morrissey? All right. All those in favour, please. Those against?
I just abstain.
Abstain. Councillor Gottlieb? Abstain. Councillor Gottlieb, was that against or abstain? Okay. I think that's carried. Have I got the numbers right?
Lynn, which way did you vote on that?
Oh, I didn't. So we'll just look at the numbers, please.
It was an abstention from Councillor Grant.
And abstention from Councillor Walker.
Yeah.
Abstention from Councillor Gottlieb.
Against? Abstention.
All right. So what are the numbers? Where are we at? Can I ask again, please? All those in favour? 1,
Yeah,
2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. All right. So that's carried. Thank you, team. Thank you.
Lynn, could I ask how you voted on that, please?
I'll vote in favour. Thank you. Thank you.
Your
right.
Worship, I'd just point out to the council that there are a few of these, and we, yeah, I'll leave it there. So we were asked last week to provide you additional advice on the rates review. I will hand to that's included in the table that was provided. Donna, if you want to do to the Mayor's point, a quick introduction on this. This is one that was included in the budget, so you would be making a decision. Or if you're keeping it in, there is no decision. If you're wanting to remove it, you would be passing a resolution to remove the budget. And kind of not, yeah, the table.
Yes, so through the chair, it's in that little table that was sent out to you.
Yeah, but it's under the governance activity, so we're still in around page.
It's the second one down, rates review. So there was 103,000 put in the budget for the first year of the LTP for us to conduct a rates review. The option, of course, is to not do that, which, as it says there, that means that the rate review will not be completed in this triennium. And I guess the other risk is that, you know, throughout the process, as different projects come online and we could be looking at targeted rates. We could be putting targeted rates in, but we're actually not without addressing or assessing the model as a whole. And I think that is a risk that you need to be aware of, because it's kind of like alien scenario of a bubble. Like you put something in somewhere and it's going to pop out somewhere else. So there is, you know, it is quite. You know, if we are going to be looking at more targeted rates, looking at the model as a whole is a good option. And there was quite a bit of feedback from some of the submissions that I read around issues with rating that people were commenting on and their dissatisfaction. So by either delaying it or deferring it, there could be you know, dissatisfaction with the status quo, which would have to remain in place without a review.
Are you talking about 1 and 2? Or?
No, I'm just talking about 2, the rates review at the moment.
All right. Well,
please, Gary. Go ahead.
One of the things is that my understanding of what we've currently got and what this would be based on is the old census. We don't even have the new census for them to work on, correct?
So a rates review, you would, it doesn't really have anything really.
Well,
probably
it
to do
does.
with
That's
census.
what the problem is. The numbers that are currently there are not being taken into account
So-
because they use the old census.
Councillor Gottlieb, I think we might be confusing representation review with the rating review.
Sorry.
Yeah, this is,
Okay.
this is about the rates.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
Yeah. So this is just, and Donna, you've said on a couple of occasions that we have a complex rating system with something like over 100 targeted rates.
Well, over 100 rates. If you look at, you know, like the normal rates plus the targeted rates, but then the targeted rates are broken down because we have differentials as well. So even each targeted rate has got, some of them got 3 or 4 separate rating lines in there as well. So it's very, very complex rating model that we're working under.
And we've heard already, thank you, Martin, I'll come to you in a second. We've heard already quite a lot of discussion from our communities about the amenities and facilities that they want in different parts of their community, and the fact that very clear message is that they're prepared to pay for those. We need as a council to decide how we deal with those requests and how it also fits with our financial strategy, which was flagged earlier on. So I'll go to Peter, please, and then Robin, and then Martin. Peter, please.
Yes, I feel very strongly this needs to stay in. I think it's a strategic, a very strategic thing for us going forward, understanding where our income is coming from, or where our rating income should be coming from. We have some principles that are based around things being fair. We've had, as Donna pointed out, we've had submissions which are from various areas which relate to rates and targeted rates, et cetera, and I think the view I have is that we should be questioning whether our current rating policies and practice, et cetera, is actually fit for purpose for us in the 21st century. And I think it would give us confidence going forward when we do come into rating situations, that we are confident that we've actually got a system that is fair and equitable and et cetera. So I would strongly advocate for us keeping it in the LTP.
Thank you, Peter. Gary, did you want?
So who is going to do this review?
So we haven't decided yet. So there'll be help obviously with staff, but we don't have the total expertise in house to do the whole thing. So we would be looking at having somebody come in and help us. But given the size and nature of it, we'd be following our procurement policy. So we would have to go out to the market for this piece of work.
Councillor Gottlieb, can I just say that we want to be probably a bit careful about commentary. This is a public setting, and understand you've got feelings and thoughts on previous work that's been done. So let's just be
I'm sure that will be taken into account.
Thank you, Councillor Gottlieb. Where's my list? Oh, here. Okay, Robin, please. Martin, please.
Donna, you said a lot of these are sort of, we've got a whole lot of historical things and a whole lot of complications and different levels and all the rest of it. So when was the last rating review done? I should probably know, but.
Not in my time. I'm really not sure.
So possibly not this century?
Robin.
And no, I just really wanted to echo what Peter was saying in terms of the time is now to do this, I think, and I would strongly support this remaining in. And the reason being that, I think one of the predominant themes across most of the submissions and quite a lot of the conversations that we're having and the hearings as well is that everybody thinks they're getting a bad deal on rates. everybody thinks that we're spending money elsewhere. And so this is really the chance to make sure that everybody is paying what is fair and equitable. But we've talked about the principles in the financial strategy this morning, and I do just want to read out the last one. Number 10, quality, consistent facilities and services for all communities across the district, regardless of that community's ability to pay. So we've agreed on that. We've agreed on it in a workshop, several workshops. We've agreed on it today. And I think that if we chose not to go for a rating review now, we're actually breaching our own principles.
Thank you, Robin. We've got Rika, and then I'll come back to you, Gary, please.
Thanks, Donna. I notice within the document there are a few communities that need to have some consultation with regards to, upgrading or inserting new water assets and things like that. Would not completing this rating review have an impact on how that would work?
Not necessarily, no. I mean, like if there was projects coming where council wanted to put a targeted rate in, there would be a consultation process with that community. That still has to happen. This is looking at our rating model overall. So you can still do that during an annual plan or long-term plans, but to do it properly over the years, and since the last rating review, which I said I'm not sure when it is, we have constantly added and tweaked. There has been no overall overview of how the whole model works, functionally together as a whole.
Thank you, Donna. Gary, please.
Should this have gone out to consultation?
No, so you would, no, I don't think that you need to consult on doing a rating review, but yes, when we have a rating review, there will be a consultation through that as part of the review.
Well, ratepayers will see that this is coming in and they haven't had an opportunity to put their view on it.
They will through the consultation process, if a rating review is decided on, there has to be consultation with the community.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, so that will occur
that's what I was
as part of the actual rating review. This is just around whether we have a review or not.
When would this take place?
We would have to develop up a timeline and look. We wanted to start obviously this coming financial year.
Okay, I'm pleased it's going to consultation. Thank you.
Terry, please.
Yeah, my comment around this, Donna, is I agree totally that there's a whole lot of rubbish in there need to be sorted out. And I think you most probably know where all the bits are, which is fantastic. So I don't know what an outside consultant would do. It may probably help you with some of the direction where they're going in the future. Will the better off water issue come into this if we do this before then?
So it's quite timely to do this in conjunction with that. We're going to find out what legislation is going forward in this next financial year, and we would be going into a rating review with the view that Three Waters would be going or staying or whatever. Right. So that would be all included, and it would include in part of the deal.
Okay, I support it then.
Thank you, John, please.
I think Terry just raised a really good point that there is going to be some structural challenges going forward in regard to our rates because of water done well or whatever comes through that process. And I think doing this in conjunction with that is good, as long as we get it in the right order so we know what we're doing, so that can be part of the look. And then I would support it if that's the understanding.
John, Peter, please.
Good call, Terry. I would therefore think we would not be the only council who might be thinking they need to do a rate review given the impact of the water done well, and therefore might we be in a situation where competing for the right resource to help us, and therefore do we need to act smartly, quickly to stitch up the right shape resource?
Yeah, that's a fair comment. I'm not sure what other councils are doing. I know some did indicate they were doing a rating review for this LTP, but I haven't actually seen any specific ones come out. But yeah, there will be resources out there that can help.
Thank you, Donna. So look, the the decision-making pathway in front of us is if we are deciding against a rating review, then we need to go to a resolution. If we're all in favour of a rating review, then things stay as they are and we move on. So what I'm hearing around the table is that councillors want to see this happen, which means that we don't have a decision in front of us. It's done and we just move on to the next one. Is that a fair assessment, Brian? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, perfect. Right. Great.
Thank you. Okay.
All right. So the next on the run sheet is just the rest of the governance activities. So that feedback starts at page 76. You would have read and heard the feedback. Staff aren't recommending any changes. So this is just your opportunity in that activity, whether there's anything from the floor that you want to discuss to add or remove in terms of the governance activity.
Yes, so through the chair.
Go ahead, Tim.
Is this the Chief Executive Liaison Committee? Is that one part of it?
No, we'll get to that.
Not yet. Okay, I'm just trying to find what page you on.
76.
This is all of the.
Just to clarify, it's the
Grants,
content between pages 76 and 85. So if you get past 85, you've gone too far.
Thank you.
Before we get to the Chief Executive Liaison Committee, we've got a couple of things.
Is there anything for the rest of the governance activity?
Okay.
Okay. So if not, the next one on the run sheet was you asked us for additional advice in regards to the seismic assessments and property budget. And again, I'll pass that to Donna. And that was a discussion point on Friday. And it's found in your table, and again, it's built into the budget. So there's no decision if it remains, but if there is a decision to remove it, you'll need a resolution.
Thank you. And through the chair, just to give some context around this, we have council actually owns 801 properties. That's including all our reserves and buildings and everything. We have 165 buildings. 7 of those are heritage and 143 buildings are leased. So that's just a bit of perspective for you. So with this budget, the seismic assessments, the property manager has since 2022 has started to do seismic assessments across our all of our buildings, and so the budget's for a few each year. The budget over the last annual plans and the last LTP, this budget often comes up there to be cut, and it has been in the past. So I think in the past mostly it's been reduced rather than cut. So basically, I guess by deferring this budget, it would just mean that we wouldn't understand the risk that council has, and we'll be able to determine our future capital and renewal works programs in regards to the seismic stuff, if that is deferred or cut. But it just means it would be a longer lead in time till we discovered or knew what condition those buildings were in. And in regards to stopping the work entirely, I think we probably need to continue it at some stage, although not all buildings do require it. A lot of our buildings, a majority of them do need to have seismic conditions done at some point.
Thank you, Donna. I've got Terry and then John Grant, please. So John Grant, please.
Do we not have a general sort of maintenance budget that would cover the cost of doing sort of assessments on buildings to understand their general condition? And I'm just wondering why we are now adding or identifying this as a separate area. So it won't have any rating impact in regard to the LTP if it stays, but we'll have a benefit if it comes out. But I'm just wondering why it's just not part of the ordinary maintenance budget.
Well, it kind of is, but it's just a separate line in that budget. So we've always, we're not adding this in. This has already been in our budgets, and it's been in our budgets over several years to complete this work. It's part. I mean, we do have general maintenance budgets, obviously, but they are that's for our renewals program, based on the life cycle management of our buildings. This is actually separate because we're assessing the seismic. We need to assess the seismic risk of it. So this is an additional budget.
I understand that. It's just around the identification. Then surely, we would know whether there has been a flag for concern for a building that would raise the priority for the seismic. So I'm just trying to get
that's exactly that. That's exactly right. So, like, for example, we've had the seismic assessments done of this building and the county building, and several others of the program's been looked at to the buildings that we think could be more at risk. So they are being done, and we're just kind of.
So just to help me understand that, all of the high risk buildings that we would have, which things like the halls and so on that we're responsible for, and our outlying buildings, how many of those have been done and how many are yet to be done?
So I'm still trying to find the numbers. Unfortunately, we don't have a property manager at the moment. I'm out recruiting for it, so I'm just trying to still get my head around that information. But he generally did about 17 a year. So I'm assuming that we've done probably maybe 30 or 40. We have 165 buildings, so we've still got quite a lot to go.
Donna, is there any priority list in terms of which ones need tackling first?
There will be, yes.
But we don't have a property manager at the moment, so is that kind of stalled? Or is it stalled because of budget?
It's not stalled because if we still have the budget, we can still get the work done. We know we know of the people that can do the work, so we still have that there, and that's a level of detail, operational detail that's sitting within in our spreadsheets and budgets that will work out which buildings are a priority.
The reason I ask is I'm just trying to, again, some of the discussion from councillors has been around the timing of when we hit these things, given that all the pressure is on year one, just around timing and whether some of those other factors lead into the importance of the timing. So, sorry, Peter, I've got Martin and then I'll come to you.
While acknowledging that we don't have a property manager at the moment, but would it be fair to say that the vast majority of those buildings are single story, and apart from this one, and wooden rather than the sort of, the stone with the gargoyles and the things that can fall on people? So potentially we're looking at lower risk with wooden buildings than some of the other councils are facing?
Yeah, there is that, but we do have a lot of buildings with chimneys. Older buildings with chimneys, they're the ones that we're prioritising. Yeah, and structures like that. So,
thank you. Peter, please.
Just for clarity, is this 103,000 per year?
Yes.
So it's sitting in the LTP, 10 lots of 103,000 or whatever. Aidan?
I think it is until we've done all the assessments, but I'm not sure if that's for the whole 10 years.
We're just double checking it, sorry.
So there might be the possibility of slipping the first year.
That's right. Anything's a possibility. That's your decision to make.
So councillors have asked quite clearly for staff to come back with a list of OPEX items that might be able to be considered for either deferment or cancellation or moving. This is one of them. So really what I'm asking for is the mood of the council around the timing of this and whether this is one that they would be looking to defer. Donna, please.
So I can just clarify. So there's the budgets in there is only for the first 3 years. So it looks like within 3 years' time, we would have done all our seismic assessments. So the budget is 103 for the first year, 36 for the second year, and 30 for the third year.
Sorry, how much for the third year?
30.
36 for year 2, 36 for year 3. Thank you. Okay, Peter, did you have something else?
Just processing.
Okay. Okay. Councillors, any thoughts on the 103, 36 and 36 over the timing of those 3 years? Moving, deferring, cancelling, changing, not doing? Yeah, Martin.
Considering some will be stuff we will need to do, but we're looking at only a 3-year, do we just aggregate and say 60 a year? Save ourselves 43 in the
Or
first
just
year?
move it 1 year out.
Oh, and potentially move it a year out, but also make it more even over those 3. But then I guess that may well hinder our ability to get the people who come and do the assessments, because probably every council in the country are having those assessors.
It's probably not for, that's detail that's not for us to get tangled up in. We just need to decide what the mood is for allocating the budget and when. Peter?
If we did just move it a year out, what it's going to do is help with the initial rate increase, which is attractive from my point of view. And so I'd be happy to move a motion that says we start in year 2 rather than year 1 of the LTP.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll come to that in 2 seconds. Rekha, did you?
That's exactly what I was going to suggest, that we push it out a year. No, we're recruiting for a property manager at the moment. We need to get someone on seat and embedded into the organisation.
Robin?
Are there any risks with not doing this work in terms of having an earthquake and a building falling down and us being liable under some act? Yeah, well, yes, but we've got a lot of other buildings that are used. So if it was a hall or a toilet or something, or is that risk tiny and I should not worry about it?
It's not like we've got buildings in Christchurch were large and killed people, fell on them. We've got small, low buildings, and I don't think the danger is anywhere as dramatic as many other parts of the country. And wooden buildings, I can tell you, were the safest ones there were in Christchurch, and that's why I'm aware of it, because I had some wooden buildings, and in the end they accepted that they didn't have to be really assessed.
And can I just say that doing this work's not going to stop a building falling down, it just means we know it's going to fall down.
Yes, but if we know that there's a particular risk in a particular building and we can remedy that, or put a sign across the front that says don't go in here or something.
So the buildings that are tagged as being potentially below whatever threshold, Brian's team will have already put a letter and a thing on the building. But what I was going to say is this is a little bit like the investigation budgets in relation to the 3 waters. The risk actually is that we don't understand how big our liability is out in, the later parts of the LTP that builds to it, where's our debt cap. So that's actually the big risk in not understanding our future liabilities.
Thank you, Aileen. So we had a motion proposal that we push it back 1 year. Do we need a resolution for that if we're going to put that motion?
Yes.
I think we've got something just about, and defers the operational 100 from the corporate from year 1 to year 2. It's proposed by Councillor Revel, seconded by Councillor Morrissey. Sorry, Donna, please.
Could I just clarify that, because that resolution is just moving year 1. I heard that you're wanting to move, go like that with the chunk of it and move it out. So we would need a resolution to do that.
Can that be included in that same wording of that same resolution? Can we?
Yeah.
Can we somehow manage that?
Something about deferring the work program by 1 year.
Yeah, if you defer the work program by 1 year, commencing from year 2, 20, and 20, what was it, to be 25, 26?
We need to change this whole sentence then. Okay, give us a moment.
Okay. Sorry, team, I need a bathroom break just while we're doing that. All right.
Okay.
Take 2 minutes.
Yeah.
For the seismic. And here. Yeah, corporate activity for seismic assessments. Get rid of the two.
Yeah.
So the first of it. Ownership, budget,
No, it's not per annum. So basically
Yeah,
it's
it's
103, then it's 36 and 36. So I think you
maybe you would just take out the amount.
Take the budget amount out.
Okay, so
And the operational expenditure budget.
from the corporate activity.
I would put this, I would have put the seismic up there, but further work program and the operational expenditure budget for seismic assessments and the corporate activity, if you wanted to put that by 1 year.
Just remove the activity bit.
Yeah, and then go and take that out to the 24, 25.
Oh, the long percent. Or do you need the activity? You need the activity. What about put it here?
I would say for 1 year, beginning year 2, just so it's really clear. Beginning year 2 of the.
Oh,
Do you reckon?
Okay.
That makes it clearer. 2 ends. And if it's 10. You could say from the corporate, I think put the from in there, from the corporate services activities or corporate activities. That's it. I think that's it.
yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we happy, ladies? Okay. Sorry, I need to put an extra R in your name, John. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, team. Appreciate your patience. All right, everyone read the resolution. We have a mover and a seconder. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Against? Thank you. Thank you, Robin. That is carried.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, does he disappear? It doesn't in terms of numbers.
But we'll just note that he wasn't available for the vote.
Thank you.
Are you happy for me to continue in the meantime?
Just hang on 2 seconds. Councillor Gottlieb, we've just voted on that resolution. You weren't in the room, but we had a majority. Did you want to record a vote on that resolution? To defer a year? Okay, thank you.
I actually have problems going to the toilet. And I have to sometimes go quite quickly, and I sometimes see in the minutes Mr. Gottlieb left the room. That pisses me off because it's beyond my control, and I have something inserted inside me, and that's why I use the special toilet. But find I can't get in sometimes because there's staff using it. So I don't know what the policy is, but I sometimes get quite frustrated.
Thank you, Councillor Gottlieb. We will work around you on that and understand your situation. We do have other staff here who are disabled and use that. So and we've only got the one. So sorry about that, but we will work and accommodate you in that. Thank you. We have a legal obligation to record if a councillor is not in the room as part of the decision-making process, but we will work to support you in that. Not a problem. Okay. Moving on.
Okay, Your Worship, then the next one on the run sheet is the CE Liaison Committee at page 60. This is a request, I believe, that's come from the committee, so either Councillor Morrissey or Aileen will talk to the request of $100,000. I just want to point out on page top of 61, currently the preferred option would be funded from retained earnings, so that wouldn't have an impact on your rates, if you continue with that decision, or you could make a decision to rates fund it, in which case it would be a 0.1 increase. And I'll hand over to Councillor Morrison.
Yeah, I don't mind speaking to that. Yeah, this came about because the last KPIs, it was to do with contract, bring the contract modelling KPI, and there was no funding for that to be advanced. And it was about $100,000 that was requested for that. So we didn't advance that KPI. We couldn't because we had no funding to do so. The ramifications of not having some money in the budget is that we set a KPI that does require some funding. And if we haven't got it, then it doesn't happen. We can take the money from retained earnings with no rating impact. I myself would not actually want to rate for it. So I guess the choice is councillors, that either we don't fund anything for the KPIs or we take it from retained earnings.
Thank you, Councillor Morrissey. I'll open this for discussion. Terry.
Yeah, John, as the chair of that committee, can you just expand on, you said contract modelling? Could you give us a bit of a background what that means?
It was when we were looking at trying to do more in-house, bring contracts, bring more work in, the man in the van stuff,
right?
That sort of stuff,
right?
So that was in the section 17, but that sort of work.
Okay. Yeah.
So just to clarify, we've had quite extensive discussion out in our communities and around the council table about the fact that we basically are in a contracts model where everything is contracted out, and we want to task the chief executive, and we have with a KPI, to explore a model where we have a mixed contracted and in-house capability. But that means looking at how that would be done, all the logistics involved, the resources involved, and tasking the KPI to do that work, but we need funding to do it. So the proposal is that there's nil rating impact, that it's funded from retained earnings. Yeah, and this is a pathway that we've had extensive discussions with our communities on. So personally, I'm not seeing an issue with it, as we've talked about, there's nil rating impact, and we either stay with the contracting model and remove that KPI from the chief executive, or we basically respond to the wishes of the communities that we've had expressed, and we do this piece of work. Terry.
So going back to this, so we're going to consult a consultant to talk about getting rid of consultants. So it's an interesting proposal. I do agree that we need to look into the fact that we can do some stuff in-house and we need to work through that. So is the money, is it over 3 years? Is it one-off?
It's, my understanding is it's one-off.
One-off. And when would that work be prepared? When would this be done? If I asked Aileen, is it planned to be done?
Your worship, I think it's about 100,000 to go into the Chief Executive Liaison Committee work program rather than the CEO's KPIs. I guess that's my suggestion.
It's going where, sorry?
I'll ask Aileen.
So look, this is pretty awkward for me to speak to because, however, my understanding is its capacity that it is allocated to the Chief Executive's Liaison Committee for whatever KPIs are finally decided upon, and that those KPIs would be coming to council for sign-off. So my understanding is it's not tagged to anything specific, but there were a couple of contenders in the mix that it could actually fund. I'm completely agnostic, as are staff, about this. But I guess what happened last year was there were KPIs that were unfunded and then couldn't be met. And there was a resolution that said to carry, did it say carry forward? No, it said no. Seek in the next financial year. So there was a resolution of council back in March, I understand. But my understanding right at this point in time is there are no KPIs agreed. There are some drafts floating around that in due course will come to council for sign off, and that is tagged as capacity for whatever arrangement of KPIs may be finalised.
Thank you. Reka, please.
So how did we land at the figure of $100,000? Anyone want to take that?
That, as Amy just said, that was what it was going to cost to do the contract modelling. That was a KPI that's now been discarded. In all honesty, that just didn't go ahead because we had no funding for it. In order not to be caught like that again, this is to facilitate any future KPIs that this council decides are relevant for the CEO.
So it will just sit there as a one-off budget item
for whatever is needed to address KPIs that this council sets this term.
So as a way forward, if this council was to set some new KPIs, might recycle some of the old ones, we understand that there is 100 grand in retained earnings that we would be able to tap into at that time.
To deliver on those.
To deliver on those.
Those
pretty much in a nutshell, Rika, yes.
Okay. So if we were to not support this, because we haven't firmed up our KPIs for the next year, we know that how we could potentially fund it.
Out of retained earnings.
Out of retained earnings.
Yep.
Okay.
And
do you feel, as the chair of that committee, do you feel comfortable with that?
I do, because I have no idea what KPIs you guys are going to agree to or want. Well, you've already had your opportunity to say what you want. There's KPIs in the pipeline at the moment. I don't know what the cost of those, if any, will be. But if we can get the money out of retained earnings, that would be fantastic. It would stop us having to drop a KPI like we did last time.
Okay. Thank you.
Peter?
Thanks. Look, I believe strongly that if we're setting KPIs for the chief executive, we have to give her a fighting chance of achieving them and therefore put the resource in. I do not understand why we would take it from retained earnings. And I know I've heard people around this table say, you know, you dip into the cookie jar once and it becomes easy, and next time you go and dip into it, and we know we have to build our retained earnings. We will have to build that up because of basically where we live and all those sorts of things. And if I remember correctly, number one item in our financial strategy is that for everyday expenses, we use everyday money or something along those lines. So I think for consistency, and for consistency with that, and for consistency with our view of retained earnings, we should be rating it.
Thanks, Peter. I come if I could just answer that. I'm a cookie jar man myself. I don't like putting my hand in there, mate, at all. And we may not have to. In fact, the other KPIs that we set for the CEO went through without any cost attached to them at all. Maybe we'll do that again this year. It is just an avenue that could be available so that we don't set the CEO up with a KPI that she's unable to deliver because of financial reasons. Yeah, but believe you me, I'll keep that cookie lid jar screwed down tight. It'd be up to the council to decide what KPIs anyway, and there could be cost implications revealed at that stage.
I was just going to refer that question to Hayden, who I understood did the budgeting and can explain whatever that reason is.
For the use of retained earnings, and I think it was just I think it was to do around with the nature of the work, really, in that it was sort of one-off, and yeah, that's really the only reason that I think we went down that route. And yeah,
I could probably add to that. I think Councillor Morrissey explained it. It's a probability. So we wouldn't necessarily, if we rated for something, we would have that 100,000 sitting there. By council indicating that they would use retained earnings, it's almost as if needed. That funding would be there for it if something comes out of the C Liaisons Committee. That was my understanding of using it.
You nailed it so much better than I could, Donna. Thank you.
Yeah,
Delly, did you?
I'd buy that argument
Yeah,
better than Councillor Morrissey's argument.
I seem to remember quite a strong mandate around the room regarding looking at what we can bring in-house. That was quite a, the successful use of local contractors to do roads and things like that. So I'm just reminding everyone that the discussion was actually quite positive towards that, and whether it survives as a KPI this round, which they're draft at the moment, I support that staying there.
Thank you. Peter, did you have something else? Okay.
Just to say that I appreciated Donna's explanation.
Thank you. And that helps to clarify that. So what I'm hearing is that councillors are happy to leave that in there, and there is an argument for keeping it as retained earnings, because if we rate for it, then it creates another level of complexity when there's some uncertainty about how that would be applied. Donna,
So through the chair, if it is your wish to do this, this isn't included at the moment, so we would need a resolution to include it, and we would also need a resolution in the resolution that it says that would come from retained earnings, and that is just so that finance have got that mandate to know that whatever is in retained earnings, 100,000 of that is tagged for something. So we would need a resolution.
We've got a draft resolution. That
you have. Okay.
Could move it, please.
Thank you.
Yeah,
You go ahead.
I'm confused. It's coming from retained earnings, or is it not? We were told carefully about using retained earnings, but do I get the message that it's not going to come from anywhere unless it's required, then it's going to come from retained earnings?
Nailed it. I'll move it.
Awesome. Thank you, Councillor Morrissey. Councillor Revel. All right. So put the motion.
Up to 100,000.
Up to. For Anne. Okay, Moore and second, happy with that amended wording? All right, thank you. We'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried. Thank you. All right, thank you, Brian, Leslie, Donna.
Yeah, great.
What's next?
So the next one on the run sheet is another staff suggestion that was first raised in the 7th of May workshop. Lisa will speak to it, and it's regarding the benchmarking exercise. Page 61 of the agenda packet, and this is one that's not included in the budget. So if you decide to add it, it would be additional extra.
And we'd have a resolution.
And we'd need a resolution for that. So Lisa will speak to it.
Lisa, happy to give us an overview on this?
Absolutely. So over the last few years, we've observed growth in employee numbers. That has been organic, and we're not hiring for the sake of hiring. But what we have observed is that potentially there's an opportunity to review where our resources currently sit within our organisation, to understand where we've got our resources in the right place, to make sure that we're fit for purpose now, but also that we're fit for purpose moving forward, and that we have, as I said, our resources in the right place. So a benchmarking or right-sizing exercise is not just to look at what we are as an organisation, but also benchmarking against other local government organisations to make sure that we are sitting where we should be. Part of this came off the back of we did some work within the finance team and realised how lean we were running in terms of finance equivalent for the size of organisation, things like that. So it stemmed from that, and there is the potential that we might find inefficiencies, over-servicing, or challenges in resource allocation. So that's the purpose of the benchmarking. We got some indication from a couple of providers or vendors around doing this work, and the 80K was the top end of that work.
If I could just add to that, it also was flagged in the people strategy that was delivered to the Chief Executive's Liaison Committee in February, and that was a KPI set by the council in the previous year. And this was flagged also in a response to the fact that we have one of the lowest level of staff per rating unit of councils in the country. And so that, the immediate thought is, oh, we need more people. But the other thought is actually, let's see where we can put our people more effectively. And so that's the other reason for the proposal in front of you.
Thanks, Aileen. Delly?
Totally support this work. I think it's really, really important, both in the departments of the council, but also as an overview. And it might actually, because we are, am I right that our staffing is now up by about 2 million? It went from 25 to about 27. So would this be an opportunity also that if council said we would like to see where we can reduce costs on our personnel, the benchmarking might actually pull out some opportunities there. And I'm not looking to shoot staff or fire staff, but within that whole piece of work, there's opportunities to see maybe where we're wasting resource or where we're overspending, or where we need to increase.
So if I could speak to that. So the basic answer is yes. But the secondary answer is that we've actually got about 10 staff in the organisation that are fully funded from elsewhere this financial year. So it's when you look at expenditure, that's one thing, but you've also got to consider what's the revenue sitting behind it. So there's 10 staff not coming from ratepayer funds in that budget that were not in the previous years. So that explains a big chunk of that step up.
Thanks, Aileen. Terry?
Sorry.
You go ahead, finish, Delly.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, regardless of that this work would identify where we're actually spending ratepayer dollars, as well as our efficiencies and the teams that need more or need less.
Yeah, and I support this. It's really important to look internally and also look at what we can bring from the outside inside, not only just the internal efficiencies. And while we do have, and I acknowledge we do have a low number of staff, we are consultant driven on everything we do. So we do use a lot of money outside this organisation with consultants. And I think this is an efficiency thing that we can look. It does say may identify efficiencies. And I'm hoping that they can find a way to improve them and bring more work internally. So support it.
Thank you, Terry. Peter, please.
I'm just a little wary. I think the idea of looking at our efficiency and effectiveness is really good. And to be able to identify where staff are, overworked, if you like, or where the expectations we have on staff are too great. I fully support that. I'm a little concerned about the term benchmarking because it may be used as an excuse for adding additional resource into our organisation because the council down the road, they have 10 people in this area and we've only got 2, and that we're opening up a Pandora's box of justifying we've got to have more people because people down the road. So that's where my wariness sits. So it becomes a question of what the outcome of the exercise is. So it's one thing to do the thing, but what are we expecting to be the outcome? And I would be really supportive of something which helps us identify where we are inefficient and ineffective. And yeah. So what am I saying?
You've lost me. Sorry, mate. You've lost me.
Aileen knows what I'm saying. Yes, Aileen.
Lisa might have a comment too, but I've done one of these before, and what the value in it is that some of the consultants hold quite significant databases about, and particularly compare to cohort councils. But then you've also got to look at it through the lens, well, the demands here are quite different to many other councils. So that's not the intention in going into it to go, oh, we need to dream up all this extra stuff. It is about how do we compare to cohort councils? Where is it we're skinny? Where is it we may be over resourced? So it's more, for me, it's more of a comparison and making sure we have the resources in the right places, because at the end of the day, the councillors manage this, you're the ones that put the salary budget in place. We're the ones that sort of decide how to arrange the deck chairs. So for me, this is very much a deck chair type exercise.
Terry.
Yeah, just a quick one I've thought about too is we don't want to be decanting the place and fixing the place and try and do one of these exercises. So planning around when to do it is important. So half the people will be all over the show.
Thank you. I would just make the comment that I think we've seen some really good results from some of the folks that have, and I'm a big fan of in-house work, but we've seen some really good results from some of the outside input that we've had from some of our people that represent skills that we don't necessarily have in-house. And some of the engineering stuff that's being carried out has been extraordinarily good and advantageous to this council. So I think keeping an open mind is really what I'm saying. Any further comments?
Just one.
Sorry, John.
I'm in favour of it. I think it's a good idea. It's a good thing to know exactly where we sit as far as staffing goes. And I have some concerns that some of the staff around here actually work longer hours than what you'd actually realise. And if we're under-resourced in certain departments, I think this would be an opportunity to address that and make sure that staff are actually being well looked after and not working until after midnight at night, which is when I receive some of my emails and other times like that, okay? So I'm all for it.
Thank you. Ari's prepared a resolution, I think, so we chuck that up. We'll need a mover and a seconder. Any volunteers, Delhi, please? Seconder.
Seconded.
You don't want to read it first? Okay, everyone read it?
Do we need potentially have the up to thing in there again, or are we putting that in all of them?
Up to.
Can I just,
please,
one comment on this is I support the thrust of what this is all about in the context of where we are with the feedback in regard to rating increases, it just makes me feel very uncomfortable that yet we're adding further cost into the budget. So I understand the good intent, support the good intent, but feel very, very uncomfortable.
Thank you.
So, Councillor Rodley, this one does have to be a set budget going in, so it won't be of up to, because it needs to be put in as a figure. So it'll be 80,000.
Okay. All right, we'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? Any abstained? 2 abstentions. Thank you. That's carried. Thank you, team. We're aiming for 12:30 for a lunch break. What else have we got that we can try and tackle before that?
So I think we will come back to the building after lunch, so staff would have had a chance to work something up a little bit more for you. So I guess to close off, other than that one item, to close off the corporate activity, again at page 80, it's the end of page 86, that staff aren't suggesting any other changes to this activity area, but it's your opportunity to raise anything from the floor if there are things to be added or removed out of the corporate activity.
Okay, councillors, anything else that you would like to raise under this activity group?
I would really appreciate having the lunch break to further digest this before we make any decisions.
I think that's a sterling idea. Sterling idea. All right, so given that we've come to the end of that, I will second that proposal. We'll take a lunch break now. We'll come back at 10 to 1, or do you want 1 o'clock? Do you want that extra little bit of time?
Can I just check? So the pattern of what we've done this morning, is that going to be the pattern of all these 5 pages over the next 8 days? Or?
Yeah, correct. Certainly, as we indicated at the start, our report 2 is where I imagine most of the discussion is going to come from. So that is.
So we've addressed 7 out of 20, 38, 48.
Yes.
So how do we want to manage this, guys? Do we want to start limiting discussion? Or do we want to carry on and, have in-depth discussion, or do we want to just take it issue by issue?
I kind of feel like quite often we're saying the same thing that somebody else has said in the room, and if you agree with somebody, then just nod, but don't feel like we all have to make a statement on the same issue. I think if you've got something that's quite contrary or quite controversial, go for gold.
Okay. All right. Well, that's a good point. We'll try and tighten that up and make sure that we get all sides of the discussion. But let's break for lunch. We'll come back at 1 o'clock, please. Give people, folks, time to do what they need to do. Thank you. Yeah.